Yo guys, this is Reinhardt and this video is gonna be about unholy decay in RBGs. I actually got a lot of requests, people asking me, hey dude, I really like unholy play. It's my favorite spec to play, but people don't get me because of my low damage. And quite honestly, I had the same problem here in US, and I recently started running with Europeans, and the thing I like about my European group is that they're chill as fuck when it comes to what actually you play. They like, play what you're best at, don't worry about it. If you have a skill to be in a group, then all power to you, buddy. And then they're like, okay, well, if you Europeans actually run Unholy pretty successfully as well, these are their specs. I check out their specs, I tried it out, I didn't like it, I kinda, I would say, upgraded the specs quite a bit, and I come up with a pretty much an ultimate AoE DK spec for RBGs that is actually really good. I usually second or third on damage as Unholy DK. I got outdamaged by Frost DK only once, and that's because I died more than him, a lot more. And with that said, I also, if I combine my necrotics and my overall damage and necrotic absorptions, I think I'm at least number 2 if not number 1 on damage, which is completely crazy because I was not expecting that from Unholy DKs. Now about my European groups, I want to give them a quick call out because they are actually pretty amazing, and whoever's watching them, you guys know who you are. Palantis, Zerfin, ShiftX, and a bunch of other players. I really like the opportunity of actually being able to play freaking Unholy, and this is what I like about Europeans. They're relaxed about what you're gonna play and which spec you're gonna play. Oh man, but they're fucking demanding as fuck when it comes to actually being a good player. So they shit on kids if they are bad players. And on the other hand, they're actually, whoever is good and sticks out with the team, they're actually very nice about it. So without further ado, let's go over to the second floor, and I'm gonna be going over my spec, my glyphs, and so you guys could see. The first of all about the spec, really quickly. It's Glyph of Icy Touch. The Frost Fever disease deals 20% additional damage. Let me see if I have recount state from last match's RBGs. I don't think I do. Okay, sorry about that. So 20%. My top 2 damage dealing are actually Blood Fever and Frost Fever. Blood Plague and Frost Fever. Frost Fever actually getting a little bit higher than Blood Plague, even though Blood Plague does tick more. Frost Fever is much easier to manage and to apply. Therefore, it does get quite a little bit more ticks, and it gets ahead of Blood Plague by roughly 2 to 3%, and it's very minimal. But you're dropping Scourge Strike damage in your main thing. I also was thinking of actually putting a Glyph of Death and Decay instead of Death Coil, but overall I think that's gonna be maybe over the kill. I might try it out later on, but so far I don't see it being worth. Glyph of Anti-Magic Shell is a must because there's a lot of spell cliffs and you need as much duration as you possibly can on your Anti-Magic Shell. And the Glyph of Death Grip. The reason why I went with the Glyph of Death Grip instead of Glyph of Strangulate is simply because Death Grip is one of the best utilities. So gripping the FCs, gripping the healers, hard switching, you will need that extra 5 yards range instead of 2 seconds Strangulate on Lockout. And I also got with the Glyph of Pestilence. This is huge, pretty big. Your Pestilence range by default is roughly 10 yards, so it gets up to 15 yards and increases the range of your Pestilence by 50%, and it is huge. It is really big, so make sure you guys gonna be utilizing that stuff. Now when it comes to specs, I went a little bit different here. So I got my Vulnerance, I got my Epidemic, and I definitely got my Contagion spec. Maxed out on Morbidity, 2 points in Ebon Plaguebringer. I didn't put any points in Sudden Doom, and even though it's nice, it's not mandatory. Death Coils are not gonna be your top damage. And here I got up to Lichborn and I got Bladed Armor. So with that said, I actually didn't pick Endless Winter. I could have probably put 1 point in there or sacrificed something to get it there. But in all honesty, I didn't got into a lot of problems with getting my Mind Freezes off, and for those who don't know me, I actually averaged second to the first place on interrupts for both teams, enemy and my own team. Last night I think I managed up to 13 interrupts in one BG group, and that is actually very good for DKs, because most of the DKs, even the rank 1 DKs, do only 2 or 3 interrupts per match, which is pretty miserable. So anyway, that's the spec that you guys want to run if you want to play Unholy RBGs. That's the glyphs. The gameplay is very easy. Apply your both diseases. Don't be fucking lazy motherfucker and do auto break right off the bat. And then pestilence your shit. Once you get pestilence run, drop Death and Decay on as many targets as you possibly can. Yes, I know it's very common sensey, but quite honestly, you need to Death and Decay off the cooldown. Like, off the cooldown. Otherwise, it's not gonna be worth the attempt. And remember I said that Frost Fever does tick a little bit more often? Well, here's the example of it. It basically ahead of my stuff by 1 Bloodbringer. Now, when you're gonna be doing hard switches and you see a lot of targets around, only then use auto break pestilence. Don't use it if you just wanna auto break a target and there's no targets around. No, auto break, from my experience, is the best used coupled with the pestilence. And yes, you will have pretty good amount of Death Runes via Blood Runes and a good amount of Unholy Runes, but the Frost Runes are usually going to be the open one. They are going to be used for Chain of Icing. If you need a Chain of Ice Rogue, I quite frequently Chain of Ice the Rogue to get something off the healers, and I usually just Chain of Ice to get some Runic Power. I actually just gonna Chain of Ice so I could get Runic Power enough to Mind Freeze, because my Mind Freezes are not free. Is this 1 point worth it or not? Well, it gives me about like 300 to 400 attack power, and right now Unholy basically can squeeze out the living crap out of itself when it comes to damage. So if you're doing more damage, then who cares? The priority is you're not going to be square striking at all, like none. I think I square strike maybe 1 out of 100 necrotic strikes. The reason why I'm saying that is because there's basically your square strike is going to be hitting like a wet noodle, and your necrotic strikes are going to be the priority. So usage for Death Runes and Unholy Runes is going to be necrotics. But for Death Runes you might will have to repestilence again or use it for Death and Decay. I don't blood boil often because I don't think it's worth it, even though it does provide some nice damage. Overall, I just would like to refresh my diseases with either pestilence, or I would simply like to just use the Death Rune for a necrotic stack to get some casting debuffs. The reason why we want to bring Unholy in RBGs is for 2 primarily reasons. We have Ebon Bloodbringer debuff, and we have a Curse of Tongues debuff via necrotics. So we have one of the most potent debuffs that will enable us to lock down the healers or casters very efficiently. Frost Decay is there to just tunnel damage, while Unholy does provide some neat debuffs. And Ebon Bloodbringer basically gives you Lux an opportunity to apply Curse of Weakness and more Curse of Tongues on the targets that you're not training. So with that said, I'm gonna show you guys a few footages of me actually playing as Unholy Decay. I'm gonna show you my damage against the 26, 25, 26, 2700 rated teams on US. And on top of that, later on today or tomorrow, I'm gonna release a couple videos of me beating multiple 2800 DK in RBGs, he has 2 rank 1 titles on damage as Unholy, and the difference was significant. So let's check it out. One thing I forgot to mention is that because of this advance we can push further than actually Frost Decay. As you guys can see, I got a very good pestilence off here on basically all the targets, and look, I'm actually a lot of numbers are flying here. And I'm also gonna do the same thing over here. So basically this is your job here. Get some mobility out, switch very often because it's a dot-cliff teams, and make sure when you're switching you're doing as many pestilence as you possibly can. Now right here you see I'm gonna be pestilencing again, and even though I die, the damage is still gonna be there. And this is exactly what I'm talking about Unholy Runes and your Death Advance. I'm gonna get gripped over here, and look at me. The first thing I'm doing here is finding the target that I can do 2 Unholy Runes on to get my Death Advance, so I could actually kite pretty effectively. And I pestilenced right away here. and I'm chainadvising this disc, and I'm getting on him because he's pushing pretty difficult. As soon as I see there's a rogue and there's decay, there's a potential pestilence out here. As soon as it decays, AMS is gonna be down, and I'm stuck in necrotics like a motherfucker on this priest. Get a full mind freeze on him, and this is what basically you have to do as Unholy Decay. You have to be working as a disruptor. It's no longer more like tunnel damage as Frost Decay. You will have to be pretty mobile and pretty over the top when it comes to your gameplay. Switching a lot is always a plus. Play what you like, guys, and if you're playing a lot of getting a lot of enjoyments. I'm sorry that right now there's a few specs that are not the most balanced, like Feral Druids or Arms Warriors, and I'm not hating on them, guys. It's just my personal experience. Not many people would actually want to run with them, which is very unfortunate because they do bring some nice utilities and damage, but compared to the other classes, they're just a little bit behind. If you guys play League of Legends, there's a similar situation out here in League of Legends where a couple champions do stand out and they have their own niche, but overall they're not the top picks because somebody else can do a better job than them at whatever they're trying to do. So that's it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's been a bit long, but as you guys all know probably by now, my all guides are very long, and I'm gonna be releasing this 2700 RBG video later on today. We actually farmed them twice, which was awesome. And let me just post some damage over here. If you look at the damage, I'm number 3, but I'm just a little bit behind the top damage dealers, and I was Unholy the entire game. If you look at the DJ Reels, the Frost Decay, he is sitting at what, number 7, number 8. He did about 15 to 20% less damage than me, but even more so because I did a lot more necrotics than actually he did, because Unholy is using their death runes for necrotics, and they also use frequently their Unholy runes. And in all honesty, other Frost Decays don't use a lot of Unholy runes because they just have a priority: Frost Strike and Howling Blast. That's the two buttons that they usually mash right now in RBGs. So with that said, Unholy can be competitive, and I will show you how later on with my gameplay. Thanks for watching, and до свидания.